State owning Michigan. It's a 16-year storyline in the famed rivalry, with the Buckeyes winning 15 of the last 16 meetings. The only time the Maize and Blue has come out on top was in 2011 between the regimes of Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer dominance, when Luke Fickell was the interim coach for the Buckeyes for a team that finished at 6-7. Otherwise, the Buckeyes have owned Michigan since 2004. Couple times recently, it looked as though Michigan might break through under Jim Harbaugh. Let's go back to 2015. Even though the Buckeyes fielded what I consider to be the most talented football team that we've seen in quite some time in college football, despite not winning a national championship that particular season, the 2014 national championship squad was back in 2015, lost a devastating game to Michigan State in Columbus the week prior to the game. And Michigan was actually a 2-point favorite against Ezekiel Elliott and company. Zeke ran wild. The Buckeyes dominated Michigan 42-13. All right, in 2016, the game was pretty much a toss-up, and Michigan dominated the game on the field, but led Ohio State back in the game due to turnovers. And, of course, Ohio State won the thriller in double overtime in a number 2 versus 3 matchup, 30-27. Just a year and a half ago. Right now, it seems unfathomable that Ohio State would lose to Michigan, that Ohio State would be an underdog to Michigan. They've been that dominant the last 2 meetings. And, of course, 15-1 over the last 16 years and undefeated since Urban Meyer took over, and now Ryan Day with another butt-kicking of Michigan 56-27 last year. But think back to the game prior to kickoff in 2018. Harbaugh took over in 2015. At this point, he was only 0-3 against the Buckeyes. And in 2016, he probably should have won that game. Heck, he should have won the game. They led 17-7. They came within a chain link measurement of winning the game and going to the Big Ten Championship and being an overwhelming favorite to get to the college football playoff. So at this point, the narrative hadn't grown to what it is now, that Ohio State just dominates Michigan. Forget what you know right now. Go back to the game, the week of the game in 2018. Michigan was just 2 years removed from coming within that close of beating Ohio State in a game that they outplayed the Buckeyes in Columbus. They were back in Columbus as a 4-point favorite. Yes, Ohio State would eventually win the game 62-39, and all those people that picked Michigan, the Buckeye fans were pointing at them saying, "Are you kidding me?" And even just the standard college football observer was saying, "Are you kidding me? How is Michigan a favorite in this game?" This is why Michigan was the favorite in 2018 and why they have missed their 2 golden opportunities in 2016 and 2018 to knock off the Buckeyes. And now that train is running away from the Maize and Blue and may never return. We remind you, you're watching Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please like, comment, share the videos on social media, and subscribe, because we break down the game that we all love unlike anyone else. We're going back to 2018, a game that the Buckeyes would eventually win 62-39. The Buckeyes could have scored 70. They hit the ball inside the 5-yard line when the clock ran out and took a knee. Michigan only scored 39 points. Yes, that's a big total overall, but it was misleading. They only had 19 after 3 quarters. Dwayne Haskins threw for 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. But coming into the game, there was significant, substantial reason why Michigan was a decided favorite against Ohio State. It made sense. Before you call me crazy, look at the evidence. Michigan came into the game with the number 1 defense in the country. Ohio State had a top 75 defense. They had been run into the ground most recently by Maryland in barely escaping College Park 52-51 in triple overtime. So these 2 teams play mirror schedules against each other within the Big Ten Eastern Division. So we have a lot of data to compare these 2 teams once they reach the conclusion of the season. And this is what we had on this particular season in 2018. Ohio State 10-1, Michigan 10-1. But Ohio State's loss was to a marginal Purdue team, and they got trounced 49-20 in that infamous blowout in West Lafayette. Purdue would finish 6-7. They lost 7 games. Michigan lost to a Notre Dame team that reached the college football playoff at 12-0. So a much better loss for Michigan on the road by 1 score against the college football playoff team. Ohio State losing by 4 scores on the road against Purdue, a 7-loss team in West Lafayette. All right, let's look at the like opponents. Nebraska, example number 1. Ohio State struggled against the Huskers, barely winning in Columbus at home 36-31. Ohio State's defense in that defense gave up 450 yards, again, in a 5-point win. Michigan crushed Nebraska 56-10. They outgained Nebraska 491 to 132, and they only gave up 1.3 yards per carry on defense. Again, Ohio State struggles against Nebraska, winning 36-31. Michigan crushes Nebraska 56-10. All right, we go to the Maryland matchup. Michigan wins comfortably at home 42-21. They gave up a special teams touchdown that didn't matter. It was actually more of a blowout than that. Michigan's defense only gave up 220 yards in winning comfortably 42-21. Ohio State came within this much of losing an embarrassing, what would have been a cataclysmic loss at Maryland, 52-51 game, triple overtime. Maryland, had they thrown a decent pass for the 2-point conversion in the win, would have walked away with a victory against Ohio State. Buckeyes only win 52-51 on a dropped pass in triple overtime. Anthony McFarland ran for 298 yards against Ohio State. Maryland racked up 535 yards of total offense against the Buckeyes. Again, they could muster just 220 against Michigan. Michigan wins by 21. Ohio State survives by 1 point in triple overtime against Maryland. All right, let's get to the Michigan State comparison. And you may say, hey, Mark, Ohio State actually beat Michigan State worse than Michigan did. No, they did not. Yes, the final score was 26-6 for the Buckeyes, winning by 20 against Sparty. Michigan only won by 14. Let's do the deeper dive. That's what we do here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, as we put things into context for you, the smart fan. Michigan beat Michigan State 21-7. Do you know how Michigan State scored? They got an interception. They ran it inside the 4-yard line. They basically had a pick 6. They had no offense on the day. They gained, Michigan State against Michigan, 94 yards of total offense. That's nothing. They had a 7-yard touchdown drive. Michigan rolled up 395 yards of total offense. They outgained Michigan State by 301 yards. Again, Michigan crushed Michigan State. The final score was only 21-7, but by all indications, I watched the game, they killed Michigan State. Ohio State beat Michigan State 26-6, yes, but the game was 7-6 near the end of the third quarter. Ohio State could basically do nothing. Michigan State fumbled twice, not because Ohio State defenders made plays, but because Michigan State coughed it up because they couldn't snap the ball. They couldn't pitch the ball on one particular play, and the other one, the punt snap went awry, and Ohio State scored 2 touchdowns on bad exchanges of the football by Michigan State. Michigan State handed them the game. Ohio State's punter basically pinned Michigan State down inside the 5-yard line the entire second half, and Ohio State went from a 7-6 lead to a 26-6 win. But Michigan outplayed Michigan State far more than Ohio State outplayed Michigan State. All right. The Indiana game. All right. This is the one in which the Buckeyes actually outplayed Michigan to a certain extent. Michigan beat Indiana by 11, 31-20. Ohio State beat Indiana by 23 at 49-26. But the game was close going into the fourth quarter, so that's pretty much a stalemate. And if anything, the Buckeyes outplayed Michigan against Indiana. And then finally, we've got our best example against a quality team. So you could say in some of these matchups, well, Mark, these were against inferior teams, against bad teams or marginal teams. How about against Penn State? Ohio State down to Penn State in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left, 26-14, completely outplayed, losing by 2 scores. Had to score 2 touchdowns in the final 5 minutes of play to beat Penn State 27-26. Ohio State was outgained in the game by 103 yards. Michigan throttled Penn State 42-7. Even Penn State's touchdown didn't matter. Came near the end of the game. It was 42-0. Meaningless touchdown. Michigan held Penn State to 186 yards of total offense. So against everybody excluding Indiana, Nebraska, Maryland, Michigan State, and Penn State, Michigan completely outplayed Ohio State. That is data that matters until they hit the field. And Urban Meyer and Ohio State and the superior talent showed up against Michigan, won the game 62-39. Why do I bring this up now? I bring it up because people bring it up to me all the time. What were people thinking about? How could Michigan have been a favorite against Ohio State? It did make sense. Did I pick Ohio State? Yes, I did, on a hunch that they would show up in Columbus with Urban Meyer on the sideline, and the superior speed and talent would show up and win the game. I never thought 62-39. But here it is. For my own sake, probably shooting this video, that I would talk Ohio State, Michigan 2018, just because it's been widely speculated and discussed. Why in the world was Michigan the favorite? That's why. They outplayed Ohio State through 11 games. It wasn't even close, even though both teams were 10-1. Michigan was clearly the better team. I'm not saying the better team, but they played like the better team through the first 11 games. Ohio State got it together for the big matchup in Columbus and marched on to the Big Ten Championship once again. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking it down every day. This is our Ohio State-Michigan 2018 comparison, and this is kind of for me. And we've got so many great things to break down. Look at this. 1983 do-over national championship race. We'll break it down in terms of what should have happened, what could have been decided. We'll do the same thing in 1984, 1990 as well. Down times, when elite programs are down, what does it mean? What's it look like? Right here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. We'll see you next time.